Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a meeting of the Village of Tinley Park's Finance Committee. And we will begin with a roll call.
Trustee Shaw?
Present.
Trustee Mahoney?
Present.
Trustee Sullivan?
Here.
Okay, moving right along, I will consider a motion to approve the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on June 17th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Sullivan, second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Mahoney. Roll call.
Roll call for item 3, Trustee Shaw?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Sullivan?
Yes.
Our motion passes. Thank you. At this time, the next item is to receive a financial update. Anna, you proceed?
Sure, thank you, Trustee Shaw. As the Finance Committee knows, we shared two different financial reports. One was the year-to-date revenues and expenditures, and the other was any accounts within our budget, if you will, that are over budget at this point in time. I'm not sure, hopefully you've all had a chance to review in terms of the year-to-date revenues and expenditures. Nothing to really report there. Everything is generally on par. Sometimes, things are cash flow or, occurrence of when things happen within a year. So nothing that is alarming in that report at this point in time. The accounts that are over budget, that report, I know Trustee Shaw and I have already had some discussion. There was a couple of questions that we were able to kind of clarify. Again, on that report, there's certain fiscal year transfers that haven't been done just yet, so certain things look like they might be in the red, but in reality they're not. So overall, there's a couple minor accounts that need some attention, but nothing at this point that would put a fund as a whole in trouble or anything like that. So just wanted to kind of give the board that quick update. We're continuing to work through the reporting with the new system, so I think this is a very good start. We're excited about it, and we'll continue to work with the Finance Committee to establish a true monthly report moving forward, but these are going to be kind of the standard two in the meantime that we'll be sharing with you all.
Thank you, Hannah. As Hannah said, we had a lot of back and forth. This has been a few iterations. She and Scott have been working pretty hard on this. I know we've said it before, but I would like to thank all the people on staff who were involved in getting the new system implemented. That was a huge step forward, and the reporting that we can now get out of it is a big plus. I was discussing with Hannah some of the benefits that they're already seeing. Item she mentioned is that when an invoice comes through, she doesn't have to do anything manually to look at it. She automatically sees the status of the budget and where that invoice falls within the budget. If that particular budget item is already near or at the budget limit, especially early in the year, just a great benefit. So I think I'm very optimistic about a lot of the reporting that we can do on this and just a lot of the control. And some of the additional reporting we'll be able to do on this. Not only, let's face it, budgeting is a huge one, right? And if we need to make some budget adjustment decisions early in the year, then that's when we need to do it. We shine a light on it, we make some decisions, all right? If we need to make other adjustments, then that's what we do. But it brings it all to light right away. It helps us do that. So I think that's going to be a great benefit. So thank you on that. Any questions?
No, I just want to comment. I know that you've been working with Hannah on this. I really appreciate you, Trustee Shaw, working to get these reports, because it's something I just never thought of before, like just how we could keep track of it. And that way, if we could see where the budget is, where we're heading, and reevaluate if need be. So I just think that was a really good idea that you brought. So I appreciate Hannah and the finance team putting that together. And for us, it's a great tool for us to keep everything on track. So thank you. Good job.
Deal. Dennis? All right. Appreciate it. Yeah, I sincerely hope that this will not only be a great opportunity and tools for the board as well as the village management, but also all the department heads. It's all right there, and hopefully this is going to give everybody an opportunity to have total control over their operations, and just be very confident about where they're at throughout the year.
I don't think a lot of people realize how many departments there are and how many different budgets, I mean, even down to the commissions, they have a budget. So I don't think people see the, you know, I shouldn't say they don't know, but I'm just saying it's good that we have this there to see. There's so many departments, there's so many commissions that do have budgets, so it's a good thing for everybody to stay on track
Yep, absolutely.
and adjust where needed. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further comments or questions on that one, we'll move on to item number 5, which is to discuss the sickage report. There's a review of the police department payroll.
Thank you, Trustee Shaw. So I put, again, in the backup that the Finance Committee received, there was a cover memo and then the sickage report that we are about to discuss as well. So I'm just going to kind of recap that for discussion purposes. As you all know, the village engaged its independent auditing firm, Sickage LLC, to review the police department's payroll, in particular kind of looking at overtime and comp time usage. Again, the report, the findings was attached to in the board backup. By means of history, when it comes to police overtime, the village historically had the approach of do more with less. It preferred to pay overtime instead of increasing staffing. However, in late 2017, early 2018, efforts began to change that mentality and to instead start increasing staffing for the police department. About that time, Northwestern University Center for Public Safety was hired by the village to complete a police staffing study. That study was intended to assess the deployment of resources and number of officers needed to ultimately start bringing down that overtime. In the memo, there was a chart that shows the recommended number of officers needed. It's based largely on obligated or unobligated time. So just to highlight, if an officer were to spend 30 minutes of a single hour of their shift with unobligated time, the study recommended having 64 patrol officers. Since then, the village has authorized 18 additional positions, 13 of which are patrol officers, exceeding the recommendations of the study. The current number of authorized police officers per the budget is 77. Despite increasing staffing levels, overtime only continues to increase. Police department overtime over the last 15 is nearly $22 million. So the intent of the Sickage engagement was to further understand the use of comp time and the incursion of overtime as stated. Given the constraints of current collective bargaining language, the objective was to largely gather input from an outside, independent source from a payroll perspective to see what we could do as a management team and working with command staff to try to, ultimately better manage some of what we were seeing. So the report did a few things. I think first and foremost, it really just validated what everyone kind of understood to be happening as it relates to comp time and overtime usage. So just quick rundown of it. I know that you've all had it and have likely had a chance to review it, but it ultimately kind of lays out, what data was provided. There was about 9 months of data that we kind of started with and that we felt was enough to kind of paint the picture. The introduction explains the basics of how scheduling is done, how overtime is earned, et cetera. So as it relates to overtime and how it is earned, this is one of the things that we kind of are looking at when we say constraints of the contract. Most CBAs pay according to FLSA rules, so ultimately any hour that is worked will count towards overtime. However, our contract for our police department does not. Only sick time does not count towards overtime. So comp time, vacation time, bereavement, holiday pay, et cetera, you name it, all of those hour types can add up and contribute to overtime. So with that said, I'm just gonna highlight a couple of the observations from the report. If any of you have it in front of you, I'm looking at page 4. So on average, during a biweekly pay period, 15% of the hours worked for time off, about 85% of hours were time worked. Comp time was used nearly every single day in the period reviewed, except for 2 single dates in January of 2024. The average number of comp time used was 25 hours per day. So if you think of it, our officers work 10-hour shifts, so that's about 2.5 officers if they were working full shifts at 25. Overtime hours were incurred every day in the pay period, or in the period reviewed, sorry, with an average of 75 hours per day. Again, trying to put that into perspective, we usually have about 7 or 8 officers on a regular shift, if you will. So that's essentially 75 hours equates to 7.5 officers, so that's ultimately almost a full shift of officers. Every officer worked overtime at an average of 230 hours per person over the time period reviewed. Again, that was about 9 months. And all but 2 newer officers utilized comp time off. Approximately 29% of overtime hours were incurred to fill shifts due to another officer's time off. Most common type of leave to be filled utilizing overtime was comp time, followed by vacation time. For most employees, Sikich noted instances of shifts including both overtime and comp time within the same day. This included scenarios where 1, officers came in early, which incurs overtime, then left early by using comp time, or officers came in late using comp time off, and then stayed late, incurring overtime. Overall, they were still working the same or similar number of hours that they would have during their regular day. The shift in start and end time resulted in both overtime being incurred and the employee having to utilize their comp time. Had their working hours been modified to start earlier and end earlier, the day would have been considered a regular shift. The report recognizes that these modifications may have a domino effect, requiring another officer to fill any gaps, incurring even more overtime. And then it goes on to provide different scenarios. So just by means of giving you one quick scenario, an officer's regular shift would be 4 to 1400, again, a 10-hour shift. So from 4 to 6, there's instances where an officer or a sergeant, I should clarify that this was for both patrol and for sergeants. From 4 to 6, use of comp time at 2 hours. From 6 to 1400, regular hours worked, so 8 hours out of what would have been a 10-hour shift. And then from 1400 to 1530, overtime at 1.5 hours. So in totality, 9.5 hours, of which 8 hours were considered regular time, 1.5 hours considered overtime, and 2 hours of comp time were used. And then there's a couple of other examples that they provide. So I know that's kind of a lot to just put out there. I know that you've all had a chance to take a look at it. And then obviously the report goes into different recommendations. So there's been some good discussion about the different recommendations. I know we're continuing to kind of dig into those. From a payroll perspective, again, we have certain limitations on what we kind of can and can't do based on contract language. So we are taking a look at it from a payroll perspective, working with command staff. We're ultimately waiting for it to be completely filled, which we'll have our other 2 command members appointed tonight. So that way we can go ahead and implement this accordingly. But really just kind of putting it out there, and then if there's anything the committee would like to discuss now, happy to do it. Keep the conversation going, what have you.
All right, thank you, Hannah. I appreciate that. So a couple of points I'd like to make on all of this. First of all, we discussed, first of all, the new reporting that we have on budget to actual. So I want to emphasize that this dovetails perfectly with that. This is simply just one example of taking a close look at what the expenditures are and trying to come up with some assessment of whether they're appropriate, whether they can be better controlled. So in my view, this is not necessarily about one department or one class of employee. This actually applies, as I said earlier, to all departments. And whenever you look at budgets, you generally take 2 approaches. One is top down, you go for the biggest budget items first. What can you go after there? And then you work from the bottom, you look for low-hanging fruit. What are the ones that take very little effort and we can take care of those without much trouble? This is kind of an attempt to look at both ends of that. So with respect to overtime, this is one of our biggest, if not the largest, overtime expenses for the town. It's not that other departments don't have overtime, they do. And overtime, excuse me for that, as we go forward, we will be looking at all departments for overtime. The new reporting is going to give us the ability to provide department heads with that, so there's visibility. And if there's a legitimate reason for it, then we'll be looking for that reason, and then we move forward. If the overtime can be controlled and should be controlled, then that's what we'll do. And this reporting will help us get there. One of the reasons that we release this report publicly is because I'm a firm believer in public awareness. I think the more the public knows about how things operate, yes, we and the staff are under a microscope, but this is a public entity, and that's what it's about. It's tax dollars, and we owe the public the visibility to it. And with the improved reporting, with advisory reports such as this, that's how we do that. We bring transparency to the community, to the public, and quite frankly, when the public has visibility into this, if the public decides that they think that's appropriate and that's how we should be spending the money, we want to hear from them. That's how we should be spending the money. And there are consequences to that, obviously. Tax dollars don't grow on trees, they come from somewhere. We do our best to control it. We freeze taxes the past couple of years, and we're continually looking at all budget items to see what we can cut, what we can pare down. Everything that comes before this board, we scrutinize it. But if the public is dead set that we should be spending money on something, then we need to figure out how to do that. Again, this is about board governance, so this board here, the executive management, and then the department heads. And one thing that I will add here about comp time itself, as a general rule, one of the arguments I hear is comp time is just that. It's kind of neutral. It's a one-to-one. You work overtime, you can either take it as overtime or you get comp time. And if that were the limit of it, that makes perfect sense, and I wouldn't have an argument with that. But one point that Hannah highlighted here, and it's something that I would encourage people to go and read the full report, that 29% of the overtime hours were necessary because somebody else took comp time. So yes, for this individual who took comp time, it's a wash, right? They're just using their overtime hours as comp instead, except what we're doing now is we now have to backfill and pay somebody else overtime, and there's a domino effect. And sometimes it can extrapolate and it can grow. Again, all of these things are for just greater awareness, not only for the board, for management, but for the public. We need to decide what works and what doesn't. And again, I'm emphasizing that this goes for all departments across the board. So we brought this forward, and we won't go into the recommendations that are at the end. What I would ask is that at our next committee meeting, we will have some discussions about status of these recommendations. When this first came out, Hannah and I discussed it quite a bit, and many of these recommendations have already been taken under consideration. Some of them have been enacted. So between now and then, next time, we'll go into a little bit greater detail. That's not only for my fellow committee members, but also for the public. I ask that you read the report, and if you're going to comment on the report, please read the report. And we'll look at the recommendations next time around and see where we go from there. Colleen, Dennis, any questions or comments?
No, I just, I agree with a lot of what you said, and, and it's not one department that we're particularly talking about this department here, and, we have an obligation to the taxpayers to scrutinize things if we see something wrong, and no one's saying that nobody's entitled to overtime. I think it's just the way that it's managed and the scheduling and using it that we just have to take a look at it. And, I know everything's in arbitration, so I don't want to say, too much, but I just hope that an agreement can come and then they can see, both sides can come together and figure out a solution, because $20 million is a lot of money. And, we just want to make sure that, we don't want to raise taxes, but if we're going to keep going in that direction, I don't see how, it won't happen, so.
Thank you,
Yep,
Colleen.
that's it, thanks.
Any questions or comments, Dennis?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to echo similar comments. Like both Colleen and Ken said, there's a responsibility for us to have, for the entire village. Being fully transparent and going through something like this and vetting through a process like this it is a necessity, right? Times change, things change. We have newer technology, we need to look into things. And what may have worked in the past, may not work today, right? So it is our responsibility to, at the very least, look into these items, right? And to vet through these things and see if it is, if we are being responsible enough, I guess if I'm saying that right, for the village, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. Especially with the information that we have at hand right now, it's kind of hard not to dip into something like this with the large amount of money that is being spent over the years, so.
All right, thanks, Dennis. All right, appreciate it. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, receive comments from the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment for the Finance Committee? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee for this evening.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Mahoney, Trustee Mahoney, second Trustee Sullivan. Roll call, please.
Trustee Shaw,
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
Trustee Sullivan.
Yes.
All right, we stand adjourned.
Thank you, Ken.